Hello learners, today we are going to understand the concept of empowerment, women's empowerment. And a lot of people talk about empowerment issues. People also understand what it means to some extent, but today we are going to understand it in a theoretical manner. So, what is going to be the learning outcome of today's lecture? You will be able to understand what it means to be empowered. Why should we have power? Why we have power and others don't? Why do women need to be empowered? And what has been done for them by the state and society to empower her? There is nothing living on this planet, on this earth, which does not need to move from one place to another. It requires movement and energy that becomes active after one chooses or decides to move. Most living beings have the power to decide one way or the other. They have the capacity or will to do so. In this sense, all of us have power. This is also the basic structure of who we are. Sometimes, most often philosophically, we name it as self. It is also important to understand that as human beings who live in societies, it is directionless to just will or to choose. We must know what to choose, where to move, and why. A rational justification is needed to exercise the inherent will that is power. Rationality or reason allows our capacities to be effective, to fulfill the goals we set for ourselves. Most modern philosophers and theorists have aligned rationality to will. As a result, we like to see ourselves to be defined as or having a rational will. Reason itself becomes a source of power or it becomes power itself. Remember the adage, rational power or knowledge is power. So basically we are entering into a complex field of defining power and its processes by way of which it is attained, maintained and exercised. We are doing it so because we have to talk about the notion of empowerment of women. I have just said above that all living beings have the capacity to choose, decide, move. It is another matter that this capacity is interfered with by others. Thus, one way to define power is then to also measure it as an influence one has over the other, its ability to think and decide. If you remember my previous lectures on patriarchy and gender and sex, you will be able to understand the issue I am raising. That is to say, that you can have your own power of the self, and also power over others, which you gain by mitigating or dwarfing others' capacities to be self-governing. In this lecture, it is important to understand this difference. We must understand this for what it entails, that some have power and others don't, or they want to do in terms of what they want to do, and some haven't got the capacity to exercise the same power, which also means that power can be exercised by others on some other people. They can define our goals. The other people can define our goals, aspirations and abilities for themselves, for their own benefit. Let us then examine why does it happen that power of some leads to disempowerment of some other people. The fact of the matter is that we are disempowered by being rendered unequal, poor, denied rights to flourish, express the things that we want to, move about the places that we want to, choose our faith or our moral values. It is also important to understand that we are not in the stage of hunting, gathering to earn our livings. We live in advanced societies which have particular kinds of economy based on the productive capacity to labor. We live in a state which has enormous power, more power than ever. And this power is retained and maintained by its structures such as police, army, paramilitary forces. The state invests its power in these structures, but also by way of legislative function, it is invested with power by people who elect them, representatives to go to parliament, make laws and policies. People who elect their political representatives also have the power to elect and recall the representatives also. Now you can see that power is everywhere. Capacities to choose is ambient everywhere. But some are allowed to choose better than the others. That is the whole issue when we come to discuss women's empowerment. Those who are in position to exercise their capacities have more power than others. there is an inherent situation of inequality operational here. This is because our states and societies construct us in a certain way. They divide us in classes, genders, castes, also on the basis of religion. In some states, religion too plays the same role, making us different and unequal. It is here that disempowerment also gets constructed as something natural. In a way, inequality is naturalized and normalized by a process of socialization and construction by the state and society. Empowerment moves are to reverse this. Policies and practices are thus are basically demanded to change the status quo. We can say here that the working class in a capitalist state is disempowered by way of in a class situation. In a similar vein, feminists argue that women are disempowered in a patriarchal system of production and reproduction. Their capacities are dulled or made limited by devaluation of women's labor. They don't get equal wages, their domestic and care work is not paid for. They become poor in this system of male oppression they call patriarchy. As a result, they work mostly in their households and in informal sector of the economy where wages are insecure, working conditions are unregulated, and jobs are also insecure. Because of this structural inequality between men and women, they also face a lot of violence. Sexual violence, domestic violence, violence of all kinds. Sexual violence in particular can hurt a person or a class of people damagingly. Domestic violence that women face also robs them on a daily basis of their confidence, mental capacities to function flourishingly. Their goals in life are also made limited, consequently, by this patriarchal power arrangement, that is, men having power over women to decide for them. If they resist this structural arrangement, violence ensues. The sexual violence and oppression does not allow women to take decisions with regard to their own life goals or their children. One of the important indicators of the empowerment of women is if they are a part of the decision-making process in the family and society. Women's empowerment is linked to democracy. That is why women's empowerment is linked to democracy. Democracy can have either capitalist or socialist economy, but the basic political structure must allow participation of women in decision-making process. It is thus also an important factor constituting the index of women's empowerment. Feminists are in favor of a functioning democracy where they can put forward their point of view with a hope that it will be looked at the time of political decision making by the state. Women's empowerment thus also adds to the furthering of democracy. Towards the end of this lecture, I will also discuss how Indian democracy has structured the policies of women's empowerment and how it has benefited them. But the task of dismantling patriarchy through the policies of empowerment is still a matter of debate. This debate rests on a theoretical discourse within feminist theory about the notion of equality and difference. I would like to touch upon these two here. You see, most of the empowerment efforts to uplift women from the situation of systematic inequality and oppression that patriarchal states have subjected them to are based on liberal presumption that equality is empowering. It is presumed that men and women share equal humanity. Access to equal opportunity is basic to the process of empowerment. Most policies of women's empowerment are based on this theoretical and philosophical base. From the 19th century onwards, Europe and India, and till the middle of 20th century, women and some men have struggled for this equality. But equality can be achieved or addressed by recognizing people's differences also, which has dawned upon theoreticians only much later. Liberal equality failed to address the issue of gender, caste, race, and ethnicity. The empowerment policies thus had to make specific provision of these differences. Black women put forward their agenda of empowerment through black feminism. Dalit women in India put forward their own agenda through Dalit feminism. Both these feminist articulations pinpointed the specific gender oppression and violence they face in their lives because of the color of their skin or their caste, which marks them as Dalit. So the women's empowerment agenda admitted this new turn in recognition of specific oppressions. I brought the matter up here because I will be talking about affirmative policies and programs of various states which address these issues by way of addressing women's empowerment. When one is treated unequally, one is violated in terms of health, dignity of body, education, participation in labor force for jobs. Their work and labor are not, women's work and labor are not recognized, as I've already told you. It is in these areas that most efforts had been made and are employed for the empowerment of women. Mortality rate of children and mothers had to be reduced because it affects laboring capacity. It affects aspirations and achievement of aspirations by women. Gates of educational institutions were also opened up for women in 20th century as a result of the drive of empowerment of women to get them out of their oppressive conditions. Education allowed women to find jobs in formal sector. Middle class women entered into universities and schools as teachers. They became doctors, engineers, and scientists. They began to participate in politics. They not only got voting rights but also became members of the legislative bodies, parliament like state assemblies, and parliament, panchayat bodies, and municipal civic bodies. They became prime ministers and chief ministers in some important states of India, and they are today heads of states of many countries in the world. There are human development indexes along with gender empowerment and gender gap indexes to monitor and measure the empowerment of women in various fields of life. In India, we have Ministry of Women and Child Development. There are women's commissions in every state apart from the National Commission of Women. To tackle harassment in workplaces, we have now Sexual Harassment Committee in all organizations where women work. To tackle domestic violence against women in households, we have Domestic Violence Act in place. Anti-dowry laws are also there to protect, implemented in entities, protect women from the violence emanating from dowry demands for their marriage. Various religious codes have also been altered for women to inherit equal property from their parents. Hindu Code Bill has enabled women, Hindu Code Bill has enabled women of this religion to inherit equal share of property in the parental property. Yet the condition remains dim. There is still a lot of violence against women in India and the rest of the world. The affirmative policies for women in terms of 33% reservation in the legislative bodies is far from being implemented. There is the perennial problem of rape against women, which goes on unabated, particularly towards Dalit women. We need to be tough on its occurrence, which happens so regularly. In conclusion, let me say that even though Indian state is signatory of many international programs of gender equality like CEDAW, Millennium Development Goal, Beijing Declaration, and in spite of its own many policies to make the condition better for women, patriarchy remains in place, and so the head of empowerment of women remains justified. Ideally, we should be living in a society where the need of empowerment does not arise, but then humanity will itself, when humanity has itself realized women's empowerment goes for self-extinguishing. And as I said, there is a very credible movement, feminist movement, which is called ecofeminism. You should know about that. How not only states and societies generally empower women through their welfare measures and their welfare policies, but movements, feminist movements themselves are creating new agenda. They're putting forward new ideas as to how we would be able to live better lives. One of the ways, of course, is that state itself becomes non-patriarchal. We must get patriarchy out of our way. Patriarchy is the system which has made this world a place where a lot of people are unempowered or disempowered. Patriarchy is a male system of oppression and unequal governance. It's a system that has damaged not only women but also nature. So this ecofeminism has brought in the issues of climate change, for example. If our environment is destroyed, if our weather conditions are bad, everyone will suffer, not only women. Children will suffer. So empowerment has a huge philosophical agenda behind just policies. We must never think that women will be empowered just because some policies are placed which has been made by the state. The state itself has to change because the state is also patriarchal. State supports a system where women's labor is not recognized. to the extent that it should be. The contribution of women's labor in economy is phenomenal. If you do not pay somebody who puts in labor, who puts in her capacity to labor, if you do not pay, then that person, how the system is ever going to make her rich? How the system ever going to make her equal? If at the very beginning, in the source of the whole system, there is this problem of exploitation of labor. If you don't pay somebody for some work, it's an exploitation. It's a system that capitalism had left behind, which was feudal system. Here everyone is equal, and everyone's labor should be equally valued. And it should be demonstrated, it should show in terms of wages that will flow to that person. So this inequality also got extended through patriarchal consciousness, as I'm talking about, to nature. You could go and exploit nature in the same way you exploit women's labor. You think that everything in nature is free. She's giving everything free, just as women give their affection and love free to their family members. It is the same line that you went on, whereas just as there is limit to human body, there is a limit to nature's capacity to give. You have to return something that you take from nature. If you cut jungles, if you cut forests, if you kill animals living in those forests, if you burn forests down just because you want the wealth that earth has beneath itself, you are destroying our habitat. You are destroying the cosmological and cosmic house in which we live. So you can see empowerment of women. Only empowered women can say that enough is enough. Only they can say, do not destroy nature. Value each tree, value each life. Build your economy around it. You can't be flourishing just by exploiting natural resources. If you think this way, which means that you don't see the other side, the dark side of exploitation. If you exploit something, that you become rich, but you destroy the very logic of living out a rich life. In the similar fashion, today you'll find women in science. They are putting forward theories of science. They are putting forward understanding of cosmos, of Gaia as it is called, which has a potential to alter the way we live, potential to alter the way we think. I think feminism has made a great contribution towards women's empowerment, also apart from the state using its machinery. But the problem is that state refuses to load off the excess power that it has acquired. Maintenance of army, huge police system, paramilitary forces. Why do we need all of that to this extent? They should be for security, but they are not. So what we are saying as feminists, that empowerment of women basically is linked to a new view, an altered view of human flourishing. I want that policies of women empowered become redundant, because if women become empowered, they don't need these policies. They need to just naturally live good lives. So women's empowerment on the agenda of women has extended itself to the agenda of feminist movement, which is a global movement, which is for the entire humanity, and all the limitations that are in our way should be taken away by this movement, which has gone beyond demanding things from state. It is putting forward agenda for each state in the world to consider, so that we change our economies, we change the system of production, we change the relations of production, we live as different human beings. So I think women's empowerment is an issue, is a philosophical position also, apart from the position that we demand state to take, and empowering each and everyone on this planet basically is the final goal of women's empowerment. Thank you.